there's so much of his career that you can delve into, but obviously you've only got an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes in this case to do that. And I think that's a real pressure, I think, for the director.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Boys on Film. Look, it's Sean Vickers.
Hi, everyone. How are you, Phil?
I'm good. I'm Phil Marriott, of course. If you're new here, we bring you the best movies. Well, I say the best movies, not necessarily the best reviews.
You'll get a fun session. That's for sure.
I think we're going to have a really fun session today because we're talking about one of the most talked about movies. Probably not for the right reasons, though, because a lot of people have been a bit negative about this in response to the film, even though they haven't seen it, because it's not officially out, I don't think, in this country. I think it's released in a couple of weeks or something.
Yeah, that's right.
All the dates on screen, all the correct information, because I'm just...
It's all like here. You don't get everything good.
Yeah, somewhere. I'm just post-New Year. We were talking about it just a minute ago, because I wish you a Happy New Year, even though we haven't actually done a review. Well, we did that Rose Pandemic video just recently, and that was actually in the new year. But what's the cut-off time? When do you stop saying Happy New Year to people?
I don't think you can say it next week. You can't do it. No, I'm sorry, guys. If you say it, it's not okay.
It's over. It's a bit naff, isn't it, to keep on saying it?
Unless we just keep saying it to be post-ironic, Phil.
You just got to stop. Oh, yeah, that's it. Just to be different. So it's Stardust today, which, of course, is the movie about David Bowie. Bizarrely, it hasn't actually got any of his music in there for copyright reasons. We'll come on to that, obviously. But it stars the brilliant Johnny Flynn, who I saw in a film called Beast with Jessie Buckley. I just love that film. That was a few years ago. But anyway, this also stars Jena Malone and Marc Maron. Or is it Marc Maron? He's the podcast guy, isn't he, from the States? Maron. Yeah,
Maron.
I never know how to pronounce his surname, but he's great as well.
Amazing.
So many ticks, so many potential positives about this film. Co-written and directed by Gabriel Range.
And Christopher Bell. And the sense I get is, having read around this topic, because this film is the ultimate Marmite, is that they're both big Bowie fans, if I understand correctly, and they have tried to stay quite accurate to 1971.
Can I just say, first of all, that I'm not the biggest Bowie expert. I love Bowie. I've admired a lot of his movies. I've loved his music. I've not got every album of his, so I'm not going to say that I'm a Bowie expert when comparing his work to this film and obviously the depiction of his life, because I think that would be a bit unfair. I know a lot of people who are Bowie experts, and I'm not going to say that I am one, first of all.
Neither am I.
Yeah, disclaimer.
Because I'm not. I love his music, but I'm not that person. So you can, if we do slip up, by all means, let us know.
Yeah, don't sue us. Don't sue us.
So the film's set basically in 1971, and it follows the story of David Bowie and his wife Angie in London at the time. And at that point, Bowie had success in '69 with Space Oddity, which had been quite a big hit. And he'd had he'd been a bit treacly, his work there. Sat in the middle of that. He was hanging out with Mark Bolan of T-Rex, who was obviously having a huge amount of success. And it kind of follows the story of David Bowie going on his first US tour. I'm going to leave that there. And basically what that tour engendered in him, what he made him real about who he is as an artist. And then what followed, which is his alter ego, which is Ziggy Stardust, which is partly when a lot of people engage with Bowie's music. So it's this very interesting window of time between 71 and 72. There's so many positives, and then there's so many discussion points. I don't know where to begin. I think there is an accuracy to it, and I didn't go into it, I guess, expecting like a Rocket Man or a Bohemian Rhapsody. I kind of went into it thinking, it's a biopic, but I don't think it's going to be that movie. And I'm okay with that because it's something different. I don't know what you thought, Phil.
I actually thought that it was more like a road trip movie than a musical biopic. And obviously I'd seen there is quite a bit of negative reaction to the film. I think that's mainly from Bowie fans who didn't think that Johnny Flynn actually looked or sounded like Bowie in the trailer. And I have to admit, when I saw the trailer, I was expecting the worst, the very worst when I saw this film, because I just thought, no, he hasn't got his mannerisms. It doesn't sound like him. He looks wrong. There's so many flaws, I think, with the makeup and the hair, and some of the costumes aren't great either. But I did enjoy it. I really enjoyed this film.
So again, I two things. I watched this with my husband, And my husband was a bit like, where is the music? And I was like, okay, we just need to step away from that, because often when I look at the criticism around this music, around this movie, it is about where are the Bowie bangers, right? And more broadly, there has been, if I understand correctly, some issues with the estate and with the family with regards to this movie, which is hence why there is less of a Bowie soundtrack than you would expect.
Yeah, his estate didn't give permission.
No, but I do think it's interesting because it shows a vulnerability to David Bowie. It shows, I think, a more interesting way around artists, how artists work, because as music lovers, what you get is the finished product. So you suddenly go, oh, look at this amazing album, look at this amazing song, look at this amazing. But all that is a process. These are artists that are working through something. And I do think you get something of that interesting jam in this movie, because I was talking to Joe Heaney, who's on Flops, who I co-host with, and he's a very big Bowie fan. And he was saying his sense was that gap between Space Odyssey in 1969 and then Ziggy Stardust in 73 is quite a big amount of time. And it focuses, I guess, in that kind of the ebb and flow of Bowie's career. So I enjoyed that vulnerability of seeing this individual that we all know and love, but in a very different lens. And there are things that I would have liked him to have explored about his relationship with Angie. We can come to that. But as a movie, I thought it did what it said on the tin, quite frankly.
Weirdly, I mean, there are quite a lot of oddities, and I'm going to use that pun, with this film. Jena Malone, who stars as Angie Bowie, who... Obviously, Angie Bowie being American, Jena Malone is American, but Jena Malone sounded British in this. And I couldn't work out whether that was just me hearing British or whether she was meant to be portraying her as a British character. I found that odd.
You stumbled into the Jena Malone conversation.
I know.
Oh, so I'm trying to work through the Jena Malone part of my brain, which was like, I did exactly what you've just said. I was like, she was born in Cyprus, grew up in the US. She's got an American accent. If you listen to interviews with Angie Bowie, she's got an American accent. And then Jena Malone comes along and she's kind of got this weird mid-Atlantic twang, which more leans towards a British accent. And
a bit
just
posh as well.
It really threw me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really threw me.
I found it quite jarring, and I found it quite difficult to concentrate on the scenes that she was in, which was a shame because I thought she was great. I think she's a great actress, but I couldn't understand the accent. It really bugged me.
That was a big one for me. And then I've tried to resolve it personally, going, is this what's annoying me about part of this film? And I was like, well, it did wind me up during it because it was so distracting. But I think she played the character well. It's interesting because there's the moments with Bowie and Angie are what Bowie describes as this promiscuous she is, and they have a very fluid, open relationship. It's not at all heteronormative, and they touch on it a little bit about how they wanted to present how they were as a couple. And I just wish they'd leaned into that a bit more because it's super interesting. Because they're polyamorous and they're having this relationship, and it's very open. And for the early 70s, that was completely radical, especially within a straight couple. And they touch on it, and I was like, oh, there's something interesting there that you could lean into. And I think it would have given Angie's character a bit more gravitas around who she is and their role as a couple rather than David and Angie.
Yeah, absolutely, because they felt quite distant. A lot of the scenes, they weren't really coming together. There was a lot of friction. It was quite a tumultuous relationship. I mean, I don't know, about the accuracy of that, because I don't really know much about the relationship that they had. But I thought those scenes were great, but like I say, I just found them jarring. Johnny Flynn, initially, I thought his mannerisms were too camp. Because I never saw Bowie as this camp figure. I saw him, obviously as androgynous and very groundbreaking, and his style was unique compared to everybody else. And he did come across as quite aloof in some scenes where he didn't really give a shit about what was happening with his career. At some point, I thought maybe they portrayed him as a little bit desperate at one point. I never got that impression that Bowie was desperate for success. I guess he was wanting to play music in his own way. He didn't really want to be told by his record company to steer off in a different path. And you got that impression that, the record company were trying to do that to make him more successful and earn more money. But Marc Maron, I thought he was superb as his publicist. I thought he was great. He was great. And I really warmed to his character. I felt almost sorry for him, particularly, when his career was taking off, obviously, because he'd gone with a different label at that point. And I really felt for his character. He felt a bit downtrodden. You know, he was trying to make Bowie this big success, and Bowie just wasn't playing a part of it. He was quite.
He's played. I think he's got very good character development with his character as a publicist.
Definitely.
There's a few things there, Phil, that you mentioned, which I kind of find really interesting. Yeah, when we started watching it, my husband was like, "Was David Bowie that camp?" And I was like, "No, I don't think so." But it was quite hammed up because it's not that biopic, because it's something different, because it's focusing on a very small window of Bowie's life. There was a narrative around mental illness within his family, which they explore through the film. And part of the reason why he's not himself when he's talking to journalists is because he doesn't want to reveal that side of him. So he comes across as kind of like facile or like vapid, because he's like, actually, a lot of my work is autobiographical and it's underpinned by this thing that hangs over me every single day. But I don't want to expose that or reveal that. I just want to be this artist. And when he's in the US, that comes across as being kind of fey or being kind of foppish. And actually, it's grounded in something quite serious. And so I think they play with that quite well. But to some extent, I'm not sure whether it always translates on camera, that message. I think that's what I'm hearing from you about him coming across a bit aloof or a bit arrogant, because I think he is trying to do something, but I'm not sure whether the execution of it lands every time.
I would agree. And you made a really good point, actually, Sean, because I think those scenes were really powerful, the scenes with his brother, because obviously that is an element that a lot of people didn't know about. A lot of people didn't know about his brother and the problems that he had. And I quite liked that. It was quite dark. I think they could have probably developed that in a separate film. I mean, that's a story in itself, much like the relationship that Bowie had with Angie as well. I mean, you can make that a film all exactly. in itself. And I think that's probably a bit of a pressure for the director, because I think there's so much of his career that you can delve into, but obviously you've only got an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes in this case to do that. And I think that's a real pressure, I think, for the director.
Yeah. I think, well, I would in a weird way, I prefer this kind of approach, because you get a much deeper narrative than the kind of roller coaster, let's try and tell 40 years of rock or pop music in a 2-hour film with all singing or dancing. That is a movie, and it's great and it's enjoyable. The formation of Ziggy Stardust is so important to the Bowie story. And then what happened afterwards, you know, because he's been so many characters that this is important about how he portrays himself. And so I think it was smart to do this. I think it should have gone all out and just not even be unflinching. Just be like, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to tell this story, and it's going to be an inch wide because it's a year in his life. It's a mile deep. And I think they tease you with it, and I think they could have gone further.
Yeah, absolutely. There wasn't enough danger, I don't think, because I think he had a pretty dangerous career in an exciting way, not in a bad way. I think, you know, he had such a varied, eclectic career, and I think there was a lot of darkness. And I think the darkness certainly came across in the movie, but I just don't think it was bold enough. It needed to be a bit bolder, I think. But you mentioned the music, and I think that is a big problem with this movie, and it is a flawed movie as much as I enjoyed it. And I think there were definitely a lot of positives. I certainly don't think it's the bad movie that everyone is making out to be. And a lot of those people hadn't seen the film. So I think they should perhaps watch it before they kind of pass any judgment, I think. But always a great piece of sound advice. Maybe watch the film before you throw stones at it. Exactly.
Give it a go. It's 2021, new year, have a resolution.
But I think the music really does become a problem at the end, particularly because obviously when he comes on stage as Ziggy Stardust, this alter ego, I think it kind of limps on a bit. I mean, the music, obviously, because he's playing a cover, which, you know, accurately is a cover that Bowie did play in his career. So I don't, you know, it's not like they've kind of made him sing any song. It is songs that he did. So that does feel genuine. It's obviously authentic, but you know, that stage performance at the end, it should have been this big climax, and it ended up just falling a bit flat and being a bit of a wet fart for me.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the odds against them when they can't really do much. I mean, I believe that the covers is from Pinups It's the songs he's got from Pin Up to you're right, they're covers, I think from like the like 72, 73 or something. And yeah, you kind of want it's like the chrysalis moment, right? The butterfly of film appears from the chrysalis and you're suddenly like, and here we have it. All of that, what's just happened in the last, I can't remember how long the film is, 90 minutes, is the formation of this character. We become many characters and become the legacy. And so you're ready for the like shablam moment of like the curtains coming back, and it kind of limps.
It does, in a big way. Because I was just like, oh, he kind of deserves more than that in a way. But, you know, hats off to the people that, I mean, the performances I think were great. I think Johnny Flynn was really good as Bowie, and I liked him as a character as well. I really felt, I kind of became really interested in him as the film went on as well, and I became fonder of him.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a buzz around him actually in actor circles around Johnny Flynn. So yeah, it's difficult, you know, because there's always, you think about Rami Malek when he did Freddie, he was almost like robotically like him. Like when you watch the Wembley performance, he's literally step by step. And then you look at Taron Egerton doing Elton John, and again, he played with it. He didn't try and be like, I'm going to try and mimic you. He played with the spirit of it.
Interestingly, he didn't really look like him, did he?
No,
because Taron never really looked like Elton John, but I just felt like it was him. Did you feel like this was Bowie? Did you believe that it was David Bowie?
Yeah, I think he captured something.
Yeah,
and it wasn't around it wasn't around the kind of like mimicry, as I would call it, but he captured something, and I felt like he got more into it as the film goes on, like he settled into the character. Yeah,
definitely, because the first few scenes I thought no, he's camping it up too much, and then eventually I think he found his footing. I think he found it. I think, but I don't know whether, you know, if those early scenes were shot at the very beginning, if he was just becoming, because I would imagine that's a huge pressure for him too, to portray David Bowie, because there are so many fans that would be very critical of his performance. And I think
the case is, the fans are always going to be critical.
Yeah,
because it's so difficult. You're taking on an icon, and especially when the microscope is looking at such a specific part. It's not like this big roller coaster. As I said before, not a big roller coaster. It's a specific part of his story. The fans, it could be anyone, unless it was Bowie. I think it's almost like Bowie fail, because I just think the fans adore him and are so fanatical about him and what he did, that I think it's quite a tough gig for even a very accomplished actor to step into those shoes.
Bloody hell, but what a challenge though. I mean, Johnny Flynn, I mean, you know, he must be really glad that he got this role, even though the critics are possibly going to panic when it's actually out, officially released. I don't want to talk about the flaws too much, because there are a lot of positives with this film, but I think for a road trip movie, which essentially what it is, it imparts a lot of it. I think the road scene, the traveling scenes didn't feel great to me. I mean, technically they didn't look amazing. You could tell it was green screen, which I think nowadays, I think you can get so many good movies that do that well and believable, but it didn't feel believable, those scenes. It did feel like they're recording in a studio to me. I mean, that's a minor quibble.
Agreed. There's a little bit of some clunky technical issues with it, but not enough to distract me from what I was watching, you know, because it's educational. I mean, I love music, so it's still to some extent educational about, I did not know about this period of time, and therefore I was glued to it. I'm not sure whether my husband, who liked music but wasn't, I think it may have been a bit dull at times, if I'm being really honest. So I think it does appeal. It's that spectrum, right, from like people that love music right through to fanatical Bowie fans. That's the kind of person that's going to watch this movie, and I think that's where you get this kind of polarization of the ratings.
But yeah, 7 out of 10 for me.
Same, absolutely the same. I've split between 6 and 7, but actually on IMDb I gave it 7, so 7 out of 10.
So it's Stardust. Let us know what you think of the film if you are watching it. Thank you for watching. As always, we're back. We'll be back very soon for more movie reviews, and there are, I think, some other festivals coming up. Is it Sundance? I think it's happening soon.
Sundance is due soon, and then we get into the whole cycle of all of the brilliance for the BFI. So new year, new movies. How exciting. Can't wait.
Good to see you, Sean, and thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you,
Don't
Phil.
forget to
Thanks,
subscribe.
everyone.
See you soon.
Bye.